Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Azam bin ISHAK and my partner is AMIRAH SYAHIRAH BINTI AFFANDI. So for today's presentation, we are going to do about the theme death. For our poems, we have chosen two poems which are O Captain, My Captain by Walt Whitman and Do Not Stand at My Grave and Weep by Mary Elizabeth Fry. Do Not Stand at My Grave and Weep by Mary Elizabeth Fry. Do not stand at my grave and weep. I am not there. I do not sleep. I am a thousand winds that blow. I am the diamond glints on snow. I am the sunlight on ripened grain. I am the gentle autumn rain. When you awaken in the morning's hush, I am the swift uplifting rush of quiet birds in circled flight. I am the soft stars that shine at night. Do not stand at my grave and cry. I am not there. I did not die. So at first read, we all know that this poem is dedicated to those who lost their loved ones. And in my opinion, this poem is really beautiful and I really love it. So the poem's background, it was written in 1932 on a brown paper shopping bag. It was written as a consolation poem towards all the Jews killed in regards to the Holocaust event. We all know what the Germans did to the Jews in 1932, which later we call as the Holocaust, which is the killing of every Jews in Germany. What was the inspiration of this poem? Well, the inspiration of this poem is from the poet's house guest, Margaret Schwarzkopf. Margaret Schwarzkopf is a Jewish Germany who lived with Fry in Ohio at that time in 1932. Back then, there was a war between the Jews and the German military in Germany. Fry looked at her friend and touched by the sadness that Margaret showed to her when she cried her eyeballs out mourning about her mother's death during the Holocaust. And in regards to the feelings that Fry felt for Margaret, she could relate the feeling of losing parents. Thus, she decided to write this poem. Why did I say this? Let's go to the next slide. So about the poet, about Mary Elizabeth Fry. She was born on 1905 in Ohio, United States of America, and she died on 2004. She lived for quite long, 98 years. She sadly lost her parents at the age of 3, thus she was orphaned at that time. And until she grew up, until the age of 22 or 23, if I recall, she wrote this poem, her only poem, Do Not Stand at My Grave and Weep. She wrote this poem at 1932 looking at her friend's sadness, thus she could relate to the poem. Fry never had any formal education nor experience of writing poetry. Her name was only known after more than 60 years since the poem was published. Back then, she didn't reveal that she was the poet or the author of this poem. She did not even copyright this poem because she said that this poem belonged to the world, not to herself, and she did not gain any profit from it. So, to whom this poem was addressed to? Well, at that time, this poem was addressed to all the Jews who died in Germany during the Holocaust. But in the modern days, this poem is dedicated to all those who lost their loved one, because this poem can relate so much to our life and still relevant to this day. As you can see, Fry wrote this poem because of the sadness that her best friend, Margaret, felt when she mourned about her mother's death in Germany. She felt connected to the sadness that Margaret was experiencing, and she could relate to that sadness because she also did experience the same thing, which is the loss of her parents. This poem is known throughout the entire world. It was so popular that in 1995, BBC Radio received 30,000 requests of this poem playing in the radio. Thus, it was ranked as the nation's favorite poem the following year. The theme that we chose is death, and why is this theme really relevant to this poem is because this poem describes that death isn't necessarily a bad thing. Death can be a beautiful thing, like how Fry included all the natural parts of this world in her poem. For example, I am a thousand winds that blow. I am the diamond glints on snow. I am the sunlight on ripened grain. I am the gentle autumn rain. With these examples, Fry clearly intended her audience to feel that death is a natural process. It doesn't necessarily mean that we have to grieve over the lost ones. We just have to accept death as it is. On to the literary devices. There are 9 literary devices that are used in this poem. The first one is the structure. This poem is a sonnet structure, meaning that it has 12 lines. Next is metaphor. Now, in my understanding, this poem is all metaphoric, meaning that Fry included a lot of metaphors that could alleviate the feeling of reading this poem. For example, I am a thousand winds that blow. This here means that Fry is comparing the lost one, which is the one who is in the grave now, with a thousand winds. She compared them not literally but figuratively. And then I am the diamond glints, I am the sunlight, I am the gentle autumn rain. With these examples, we can see that most of this poem are literally filled with metaphors, and that is very clever in expressing the poem's emotion towards the readers. Next is personification. So what is personification? Personification gives human attributes to non-living things. In here, there are 2 personifications that I can find. The first one is gentle. We all know that gentle is a human attribute. Fry put the attribute gentle towards the autumn rain, whereas we all know that wind isn't gentle at all. The next one is of quiet birds. We all know birds are not quiet, they are very loud, but quiet here representing the human attribute of quiet birds, meaning that the birds do not make a sound at all. Next is alliteration. Alliteration is the repetition of the consonant sound. In here, there are 2 examples that I can find. The first one is when you awaken. When you awaken, it is the repetition of the N sound. When you awaken. When you awaken. The second one is swift uplifting. It has the repetition of the sound if, the swift uplifting. The next literary device is assonance. Assonance is the completely opposite of alliteration. It is the repetition of the vocal sound. In this poem, assonance is used everywhere at the end of each line. For example, my grave and weep, I do not sleep. The winds that blow, glints on snow. If you can see at the first example, it repeats the sound eep, the vocal sound eep. And the second one, it repeats the vocal sound O, snow, which are true for the following examples here. The next literary device is imagery. There are 3 examples of imageries used in this poem that I could find. The first one is quiet. Quiet is an auditory imagery. The second one is circle. Circle is a visual imagery. And the last one is cry. Cry is also an auditory imagery. Next is repetition. So Fry repeated a lot of words and phrases in this poem. For example, do not stand at my grave is repeated 2 times in this poem. Meanwhile, I am is repeated 7 times in this poem, as you can see here. The next literary device is hyperbole. Hyperbole is the exaggeration of things. And in this poem, I could find only one hyperbole, which is, I am a thousand winds. We all know wind cannot be counted, but Fry included a hyperbole to make this poem extravagant. And the last literary device in this poem is tone. The tone of this poem is warmth. When I read this poem, I could feel a warmth in my heart. It's not sadness, it's not happiness either, but it's the warmth that I've been longing for. It's serenity. I really enjoy this poem. And that's it for this poem. So what do I think of this poem? I think this poem is a very interesting poem to read, and it's a very clever one. The language used is very simple, yet it really touches my heart, and I can't say I could relate to this poem yet, but one day I will, and I will get back to this poem when I experience it in my real life. Now I give the microphone to Mirai, my partner, to explain about her poem.
Hi, I'm AMIRAH, SYAHIRAH, and the next poem is "O Captain, My Captain" by Muddin. O Captain, my Captain, our fearful trip is done. The ship has weathered every wreck. The prize we sought is won. The port is near, the bells I hear, the people all exulting, while follow eyes the steady keel, the vessel green and daring. But oh hard, 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 oh the bleeding drops of red, where on deck my captain lies, fallen, cold and dead. O Captain, my Captain, rise up and hear the bells. Rise up, for you the flag is flung. For you the bugles thrills. For you bouquets and ribbons wreath. For you the shores a crowding. For you they call to swaying mass, their eager faces turning. Here, Captain, dear father, this arm beneath your head. It is some dream that on the deck you have fallen cold and dead. My captain does not answer. His lips are pale and still. My father does not feel my arm. He has no pulse nor will. The ship is anchored safe and sound. Its voyage close and done. From fearful trip, the victor ship comes in with object won. Exalt, O shores, and ring, O bells. But I with mournful tread walk the deck my captain lies, fallen, cold, and dead. Okay, so for the background of this poem, Walt Whitman wrote this poem after the Civil War event for remembering his admiration towards his captain, President Lincoln. This poem falls under the theme death because it is about war, and with war there is death. At the end of this poem, it shows that Abraham Lincoln is assassinated and meet his death. While they are all celebrating their victory of the Civil War, this poem is also a grief, and they are mourning for the late Abraham Lincoln. Next is the poet background. This is Walt Whitman's picture and a brief biography of himself. He was born on 31st May 1819 in New York. He is the father of free verse, also known as verse libre, as he uses this form in many of his works, including the famous ones such as "Oh Me, Oh Life" and "A Noiseless Patient Spider." The themes that Whitman uses are mostly love, beauty, nature, sexuality, and spirituality. There are rumors of him being gay, despite he never addressed his sexual orientation in his works, as he was noted being involved with Peter Doyle for decades. This poem about his admiration towards President Lincoln is suspicious as well as his other works. He discusses romantic and sexual relationships between men. Sadly, he died on 26 March 1892. Next, it is about the popularity of this poem. This poem is famous as it is regarding a historical event, which is the Civil War and the Union's victory at the end of the war. The grief of Lincoln's death is also the reason why it is popular, as the readers feel sorrow and they have mixed feelings about the event. Moving on, we have literary devices. So for the first literary devices, we have assonance. For assonance, the example is, his lips are pale and still. The repetition of sounds of vowel I, and in fearful trip, the victorship, also the repetition of vowel sounds I. Next, for alliteration, we have the repetition of same consonant sound in the same lines, such as, for you, the flag is flung, which is the repetition of consonant sounds F, and the consonant sound D in the dream that on the deck. Anaphora is words or phrases which are repeated at the beginning of different lines. There's a lot of anaphora in this poem, such as, "Oh captain, my father, for you bouquets, for you they call." These are just some of anaphora examples in this poem. Next, for imagery, imagery awakens the reader's senses as if they are imagining the scene. These lines help readers to imagine the situation with the Captain Lincoln's death and brings more emotions to the readers. Personification is giving human qualities to non-living objects. The line, "Exalt, O shores," is personifying the shores as if the shore is a human that can celebrate the triumph. For metaphor, there are a lot of extended metaphor throughout the poem. Whitman is comparing the political figure Abraham Lincoln to a captain of the ship. The ship is as an extended metaphor for United States as it fights many battles during the Civil War before winning the prize, before they get their victory. The line, "The ship anchored safe and sound," shows the timeline of Civil War as the Union achieved triumph at the end of Civil War. Next, for structure of this poem has 3 stanzas with 2 quatrains in each stanza. A quatrain is a stanza of 4 lines. This poem is in free verse form. As I said, Walt Whitman is the father of free verse, and most of the lines doesn't rhyme at all, but some do have rhymes in it. This poem also uses iambic meter. For the first line, it uses iambic hexameter, and the next 2 lines are iambic heptameter. This poem is also an elegy. Elegy is a mourning poem, as Walt Whitman shows his grief regarding President Lincoln's death, but readers likes this poem because Whitman shows his admiration towards his dead captain, and this helps in adding the artistic value and appreciation for this poem. That is all for our pairwork presentation with the theme of death. So Azam and AMIRAH is signing off now. Thank you very much. Goodbye.